Welcome to another episode of Tools, Talents, and Techniques today. And I'm going to read this bio. Sometimes I just jump right into it, but there's enough here that I don't want to miss when I'm introducing you. So today, David Walker, he's the co-founder and CEO of Spara. Now, it's a conversational go-to-market AI platform helping revenue teams drive growth through automated voice, email, and chat. And prior to founding this company, he was the co-founder and CEO of Triple Mint, a real estate SaaS business that scaled to 350 employees before being acquired. And there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about today. But before we jump into this, I just want to welcome you to the show. So, David, welcome.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it. Big fan and happy to be here.
Yeah. Well, listen, there's a lot of things that I want to talk to you about tech, AI, startup, entrepreneurship. You mentioned that both of your parents are entrepreneurs. Is that correct?
Yeah. I grew up in a family full of entrepreneurs, which gave me a really good start to what I'm doing now. So, my dad started his own real estate company when we were younger. So, my mom was a big corporate exec in New York. So, he was working from home. We'd all go drop my mom off at the train. Then he'd do the carpool lane and all that kind of stuff. And then we'd go pick up mom at the end of the day. So, she was sort of gave me that hardworking big corporate exec. Mentality. And then my dad was an entrepreneur. And then my mom did this really cool thing with a career pivot when she left the corporate world and went and started working in education and ended up starting her own company in education. So later in life, I got to see my mom become an entrepreneur, and that was really inspiring to me. And so I think I always knew I wanted to do it. I don't think I actually knew what it meant or how hard it was going to be. But yeah, from an early age, I was ready to go.
Okay, so as most people that have heard about entrepreneurship, they people say, "Oh, it's so hard, and oh, it's hard. It's like getting punched in the face. It's like eating glass." Did you see? I've heard so many different things, but then you do it, and you're like, "Wow, yeah, that's true." Did you see that in your parents at all? Like their struggles? Did they share those things with you, or they try to keep you insulated from that?
That's a great question. No one's ever asked me that actually. I think I think I saw the right amount. So I think I saw, they were both, even when my mom was commuting into New York and she was a corporate exec, she was home for dinner every single night. That was her thing. So she'd go super early, but then she'd be home for dinner. So, I think they did a really good job of not letting me see too much, but I did see enough of, them in the home office on Saturday morning, working because they had things they had to get done and there was no one else to do them. And so I think I got more of a sort of a, it was almost like my bar for normal was set to a little bit crazy from an early age. So I don't think I really knew it any other way.
No. So this is in New York or outside of New York City?
Yeah, New York suburbs.
New York suburbs. So when you decided to go to college or when you went to school, what was your major? What was your interest? Because not a lot of schools have entrepreneurship. Was it math or science? What was your focus?
Yeah, I was a political science major, which is super random when I think back. So I had two different college experiences, and I am so lucky and so thankful. I can't say I planned any of this, but it worked out amazing. So I went in as a recruited athlete, and I was sort of like do the bare minimum, focus on. I was a rower, focus on rowing for 2 years. Then I had this incredible opportunity to join a tech startup, and this was my foray into the world of tech. And so I actually ended up dropping out and becoming the first hire at a tech company. This is back in 2008. So I got this incredible experience working full time. I was the head of marketing and business development, worked really closely with the engineering and product team. That's where I fell in love with building technology and building product. And then we sold the company, and I went back and went to go back and graduate. And so now, I'm coming back. I kept rowing, but I had a whole new sort of outlook on life, and I want to start companies. That's what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. So I got to take super cool courses. I took a bunch of different types of random courses I never would have taken before. I can't say that any of them independently can prepare you for entrepreneurship in any way. And I was at a liberal arts school, so it's not like I could take, business courses specifically. But I went at them with a mindset of what I wanted to do. And I think that really helped a lot. But mainly what I had time on a college campus surrounded by insanely smart people, and 100% confidence that I knew what I wanted to do with the rest of my life. And so I was able to connect with other people in the Yale Entrepreneurial Institute or graduates who had started companies, and everyone's willing to talk to a student. So it wasn't so much that it was just the courses, but it was knowing what I wanted to do. But being in that college environment allowed me to get a lot of access and learn from a lot of really smart people to set me up to go start my next company after I graduated.
Having that perspective of being able to step away and then going back with intention and purpose is so important. And
I
as
wish
I was
everyone
also,
could do it.
I was a political science major also. I
Great.
thought I was going to go to law school. Oh yeah. Uh, but I had a great college experience. But to your point, I feel like if I would have had a little more knowledge of how the world worked and what exactly I wanted to do, because I knew it, once I got to a couple of years in, I realized I didn't want to go to law school or be an attorney. I think that's so important for it to do. So I don't know what, just talk about the education system and the way things are, but just to go into a college rudderless and just meandering almost is a waste of time. I feel.
Yeah, it's the classic. You don't know that you're in the good old days till they're gone, right?
Mm.
And I think that that's what most people's college experience is. I mean, definitely did not know what I had in front of me. I mean, I was a political science major because I like to read the newspaper. I was like, how cool is that, right? You can read the newspaper and that helps me prepare me for my coursework. That's fantastic. But part of that was also like, well, I'm already reading the newspaper, so it's going to make school a little easier. And my mindset after realizing how lucky I was to be in college, to be surrounded by so much opportunity. I mean, I was taking art classes, I was taking all sorts of different courses that I never would have taken before. And so, yeah, I think that if you have an opportunity to go sort of experience life and then go back to that environment, you just get a lot more out of it.
Okay, you mentioned something, and we don't have to spend too much time on this, but you said you
Sure.
did the bare minimum. Do you meant the bare minimum in school, or not the bare minimum on the crew team? Right?
Yeah, just in school. Definitely just in school. Yeah.
I've never done crew. I've never done anything like that. But I'd imagine if you're doing the bare minimum, your teammates would be like, "Hey, dude, like, pick it
Nah,
up."
you're doing the bare minimum. You're not going to be on the team for very long. Yeah. No, I think rowing is actually a weirdly good sport to help prepare you for college, and I'll tell you exactly why. Or sorry, not to prepare your college, to prepare your startups. Um, you're doing a sport where you got a bunch of people sitting in a boat facing backwards in spandex, and nobody cares. It's hard and nobody cares. You don't have fans. It's not cool, right? And the reality is that's what building a company is like. You have to be obsessed with something that nobody else cares about for a really long time, right? Once they care, you've probably already done most of the hard work. And so I think that's where a lot of my intrinsic motivation came from, right? It was just doing something hard for the sake of wanting to do it with no real external reward. And that's a really good description of the early days of building a company.
That is very interesting. I've heard a lot of analogies about crew and even on pictures of you know people's OMs and show with the team and where they're going. It's always some people rowing a boat, and it's always togetherness and being in sync and doing things at the same times. But the level of detail that you just shared there, that that adds a
End of the
different
day,
flavor to
just
it.
sit in a boat going backwards, trying to do it a little faster than the other guys. I mean, it's a silly thing, right? But it was my world for a while, and it was really fun.
Yeah. So let's go back to you getting your first. I mean, your first foray into startup.
Yeah.
What was the original feeling that you had that appealed so much?
I was hooked from the first night. I mean, it sounds like I'm making this up because it's like the script you'd write in a movie or something. Um, but the two guys who were starting the company were looking for someone to come join, and I had to go in after practice because I was a student and I was a rower. So got to, after dinner, so I got to their office at 9 p.m. or something on a Wednesday, and my interview. It's the only time I've ever printed my resume in my life, which was hilarious because I was 19 and I hadn't really done anything. Um, the interview ended up just basically being 3 hours of us talking strategy about the business model, about the opportunities. And um, I mean, I must have left that office close to midnight, head back to the dorms. And I swear to God, I knew what I was going to do for the rest of my life. I knew where I was going the next morning, and it wasn't class. It was back to that office, and I knew I was going to start companies.
So let's talk about that meeting. So was
Yeah,
this you three in an office with a whiteboard, just talking, throwing ideas? Like what was the energy like at that time?
literally exactly that. It was three people
Yeah.
in an office and a whiteboard. That's it. It was dark, no one was there. It was a tiny free office that they had. And yeah, I mean, what struck me, I couldn't have put this into words at the time, and it probably took me years to really articulate this well. But nobody cared what we'd done. Nobody cared what our backgrounds were. Um, the only thing that mattered in that room for those 3 hours were the merit of ideas and the energy of throwing something out and then having someone take it and run with it a little further and realizing what we're talking about is something we are going to go create. It does not exist. There are no rules, right, about whether it can or can't exist. It's up to us if we want to make that happen or not. And that's what I realized. I realized like things are made because people decide to do them. And that's so powerful. And it was an electronics recycling company. I really believed in the mission, right? We should not have all the devices that we do have going into landfills. And what we were doing is we were trying to figure out how to monetize that for companies. So,
Yeah.
right, telling a company, hey, you shouldn't do this, is not particularly helpful. Telling a company, hey, there's a more profitable way to do this. And by the way, it happens to be really good for the environment. That's pretty powerful. And so, yeah, I caught the bug. It was just this level of excitement. I mean, we were young, we were naive, right? Like looking back on it, I didn't know how hard it was going to be. And all the real lessons I hadn't learned, but I saw this one kernel of um, see how you want the world to be, go put the work in, and you can make it happen that way. And yeah, it was an awesome. I'll always remember that night.
All right. So okay. So then after this experience, I want to make sure we save enough time to talk about what you're currently doing. But this is important. So
Sure.
you go
Yeah, you're
back to
getting all
school.
sentimental about my past here.
I know that's great, man. This is what I want to know. I want to learn from these things, and I want to share this with our audience in the world. You go back to school, and then you get out of school. Did you have that next idea lined up right away, or was it something you're like, okay, I want to get back into this, and it's going to be something like this?
Yeah, the actual order of operations, I had the next idea while I was still in school. So I started my next company while I was still finishing my senior year, but all my friends had graduated, right? It was a different experience. I was operating more as a professional in a educational environment than as a student, and so I was going into New York on weekends when I could. And my co-founder had graduated a couple of years before me. He was working in investment banking in New York. We were working on this idea sort of throughout my senior year. So technically, we started the company while I was still in undergrad. And then when I graduated, he left his job, and that's when sort of went full time. But we had already started the company.
Was there anything different about that experience that you didn't have when you first went in? As in, oh yeah, like this is how it's done, but then you start doing
Yeah,
this one, you're like, wait a minute, this is not the same. Anything that jumps out?
yeah, definitely. That was probably, that was a good learning experience that different verticals are different. What was hard about the first one wasn't necessarily hard about the second company. And so it was one of those things where, you know, you kind of catch yourself in one area thinking like, oh, I'm so much better now. Look how easy this is. And then you realize that that's just not the hard thing about this company. And it's going to be something else that comes and gets you. So I think I knew how to operate better because I had just seen what, how early work plays out into results, because the early phase is a lot of faith. There's a lot of working in a black box without great feedback loops from the outside world, right? Just choosing to build something. Everyone thinks you're crazy, you're stupid, or some combination of the two. And you have to sort of get past that point where you start to bring people into your ecosystem, customers, hires, all of that kind of stuff. And so I think the biggest thing that jumped out as being different is I knew some of the signals to look for in that early ambiguity that gave me confidence we were going to get to that next phase where it would just be a little bit more real. And then the next phase a little bit more real, and kind of knowing how we're going to get there. Um, yeah, and then the vertical is totally different. We were in real estate, and so we had to understand all the nuances of that space versus the first.
Well, let's talk about that and what that learning curve was like in real estate. Because did you have any experience before in real estate? prior to
My
this?
dad's a real estate developer, so I grew up
Yeah. Okay.
working on construction crews, working in property management offices, working in basically all the crappy jobs that you do when your when your dad says go learn it the hard way. So I always loved real estate and knew I would do something in that space. So I did have some background, yeah.
Yeah, that's good. So a couple
And my
things because I
co-founder, my co-founder's father was a real estate attorney, so he
got it.
grew up around real estate, but from a different angle.
Yeah, because you know what? It's me coming from a real estate background and then dipping my toe into tech and then working at prop tech company and doing these different things, especially when I would go to these conferences or hear people pitch with what they had, a lot of times there were solutions without a problem. And I'm like, I don't think you get
Yeah.
what we're dealing with or like what actually is a value add or has a benefit to what we do or saves us time or money. And it's nice to hear that you had that experience going into that to be able to tie that into your offering.
Yeah, I'd say I had enough to not be really dumb and naive. But the reality is, even if you know a vertical, chances are you're trying to. I mean, there are people, I guess, who spend 15 years doing one specific thing and then build a company that solves a problem space for that one exact specific thing. But more often than not, it's something tangential, right? So
Yeah.
the space, but the problem was 7 degrees over here. And so there's always some learning curve. But yeah, I think having enough um, general context to avoid obvious pitfalls was very helpful. And I think it played out exactly how you said, right? The
Yeah.
single biggest thing you could do is solve a problem that doesn't exist.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's a huge challenge, I think, when you're a first time entrepreneur.
And so this was the company that you sold before what you're doing now, correct?
Correct. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
How long was that stretch?
In total, I could build the company for it was a little over 10 years.
Oh, 10 years. Okay. Wow.
Yeah.
So
hmm
during that time, what do you think was the hardest part of that journey of the 10 years? I mean, when you start something, you have the energy and you're like, yeah, wow, rah, rah. You know, you put your
Yeah.
spandex on, you're good, you're rowing hard. But then like, what are the parts that you would say were the biggest challenges?
Let me answer that first by giving you my sort of take on how to think about quote hard as it relates to building a company. The best analogy I've ever thought of or ever heard is it's like a video game. So in a video game, right, you're at a certain level and you get to the end of the level and there's the sort of the big boss, right? And then you beat the big boss and then you get to the next level. And the next level though is actually a little harder than the previous one. And then at the end of that level, you get to the big boss and that big boss is a little harder and you beat that big boss and you get to the next level. It turns out that level is even harder. That's what it is like building a company. So um, I would say the biggest challenge from a sort of fundamental level was learning that this feeling of when we just do X, it'll be easier was setting myself up for complete failure. You have to look at it the opposite. You have to say, when we just do X, you'll earn the right for it to get harder, right? Because we'll be taking on a bigger and the next challenge. So when you're super small, right, it's like, oh my gosh, it's so hard getting this product built. When we just get the product built, things are going to be so much easier. And then you get the initial product built. You're like, oh, now we have to go sell the product. Wow, that's actually harder. Well, when we just get enough customers, then it'll get easier. Well, you get enough customers, then you start wanting to get enterprise customers, and that's even harder, right? So I'd say that's the biggest lesson. It's like there wasn't any one thing that was the hardest. It was just this realization that by design, the journey of an entrepreneur is to earn the right to solve a harder problem. And so if you embrace that mentality, which by the way took me many, 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 many years to even realize, and then a little longer to embrace, it never gets easier. But that's by design. It's a feature, not a bug.
There's an expression that parallels this, and it's over the mountain, there are other mountains. And
Yeah,
to that, it's like you climb the mountain, you get over it, like there's going to be another one, it's going to be bigger, and there's going to be different things. But the tools
yeah,
that you gain during that time equip you to get over those mountains in a more efficient manner, and you figure it out so you can get to that next level.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
yeah, so that's
Maybe
beautiful.
I can share one specific. I'd say the
Sure.
hardest problem that I loved getting to solve was how do you build a culture, and then how do you keep that culture that you had when you're 20 people, when you're 100, and then 300. Um, that's really, really hard. You can't keep exactly the same culture, but how do you keep the DNA and the fabric of that culture at those different scales? That was probably the hardest problem that I loved solving the most.
So let's
Because,
talk about
yeah,
that. What were
sure.
some of the things that you implemented to make that happen?
Yeah. So the biggest learning there, and the thing I think that made us most successful there was we realized that most companies make hiring decisions and then or wonder why their culture is a certain way, and then go try to shape the culture. The reality is it's the opposite. You have a culture you're trying to build and you have to go hire for it because culture is just driven by people. So I might be co-founder CEO, but I can shape the culture as much or as little as somebody else. And so ultimately it's who's on your team that define your culture. And so there's things you can do proactively to try to bring out the best culture from your team, right? Like you can instill great core values. You can, you know, what does someone get promoted based on? What does someone get fired based on? Um, what do people get called out in meetings? Do people get called out for praise, right? In all hands meetings, like there's a lot of tactical decisions that impact culture, but at the end of the day, those are all sort of maybe a 20% movement, and the other 80% is driven by the actual DNA and the characters and the traits that your team brings to the table. So the biggest thing we realized basically that, okay, we have to actually define what we want our culture to be, not just try to shape the culture we have. And then we need to go hire people who embody that culture, right? Who will further that culture. And so we actually really thought deeply about culture in our hiring process. And we had um, things that we were looking for in everyone we hired. And it doesn't mean everyone's the same personality type, right? That's the
Mm.
opposite. But it's the sort of age old question, right? You've got some role you're hiring for, and you've got someone who's the best in the world at it, but they're a total jerk. Do you hire them or not? There's no right or wrong answer, but how you answer that question is defining your culture. And if you make the decision on a hire and then wonder why your culture is a certain way, you've done it in the wrong order. You have to decide what the answer to that question is first, and that should influence that new hire. So I'd say that's the biggest thing that I learned. And then we made some tough decisions when we were a much bigger company, and had to let some people go at one point for culture reasons. And that was a really powerful moment where I saw, wow, people actually care. Right? They resonated with that decision and said, okay, um, you actually are walking the walk. You actually care about this. We were able to attract a bunch more people that were amazing because of that decision. So there were sort of tactical lessons along the path, but it was really that the people you have shape your culture, and you really need to think about culture first, and then have that influence the people.
You know what? That really resonates with me. And there was a conversation that I had with a former coworker. Well, this is years ago, but afterwards, like we went out, we had drinks, went to a happy hour, and a couple of the people that were still at that company, and I'm not, and they were saying, "Oh, the company's changed. It's not the same as it used to be. We used to play basketball at lunch, or we used to go do this and that, and the company's changed." But the way they were saying it was that you know the the company changed, but it was like, it was never the company mandating that we go out and play basketball. Like we did that.
Right.
Like we
Hmm.
went to trivia night because we did it. No one was telling
Yeah.
us to do it. And it was one of those things like, yeah, you're right. So it is the people and the culture. Culture, I've heard, culture is what you cultivate. And what you're saying, not just the top level, but what everybody cultivates and
Hmm.
what you cheer on and
Yeah.
what you spotlight and what you put forward. So yeah, that's great to hear. So did you, when you had this realization or you had this that you were thinking deeply on, was this informed by your experience, or did you read books or podcasts that or talk to mentors that told you about this?
All of the above, I would say. I don't know that I have sort of like, oh, this is the two things that influenced me most in my life, which is um I guess a better answer in forum like this. But the reality is I think learning is some series of inputs of data, and then experiences to validate and more so interpret how you're gonna what you're going to take away from that and how you're going to apply it to your own life, right? So,
Mhm.
yes, I had a lot of mentors who had built big companies, who had made hard hiring decisions. Having some of those conversations with them was super valuable, right? Like You get 30 minutes with someone who's has 1,000-person company and has IPO'd 2 companies in the past. It's pretty easy to just talk about fundraising strategy for 30 minutes. It's pretty easy to talk about, product for 30 minutes. Um, I pushed a lot of those conversations towards, hey, how do you think about keeping your team as excited at 1,000 as they were at 100, right? How do you keep those early days energy as high as possible? Talking about culture, that really helped. And then a whole bunch of trial and error, emphasis on error. I think inevitably you have to learn by making mistakes, and made some hires that proved not to be the right hires. And we definitely hired some people who um, I had culture concerns about when doing that. This is 10 years ago, and ultimately those are the wrong decisions, and you learn, you recalibrate. And I think the biggest thing is being able to talk openly about them. I had a co-founder for that company where we talk about it. Hey, this was a bad decision. Why did we make the decision? Not for the sake of pointing blame, but for the sake of understanding the process, because the process ultimately has to change to lead to different results. And so even something soft like culture, if you can break it down to its core components and evaluate the decision making in the process, then you can get better.
Yeah. That point of communicating effectively, openly, efficiently, and not placing blame. I
Yeah.
think that is so important, especially when people know that you're on the same team and you're going the same direction and everybody understands that.
Yeah.
That is the key to most things, to most relationships for that matter,
Yeah.
not just in work, but friends, family, colleagues, neighbors.
Yeah.
If you can say, I'm not saying that this is your fault and but I want you to be the best. We're on the same team.
Yeah.
This is why I'm telling you because I care about you, and I care about us, and I care about this mission. It's so
Yep.
huge. It's so
Yeah.
important. So I'm happy to hear you say that as well.
Yeah. My
Uh,
my co-founder Xander, who I work with now, and my wife are the two best people at that I know, and so I'm just trying to keep up and learn from the two of them.
Oh, that's great. And you surround yourself by
Yeah.
good people that have that mindset. That's fantastic. So, all right, I wanted to make sure that we had enough time to really dive deep in your current project. Tell me about the first thought that you had about it and how you got going with it. Because this is really exciting.
Sure.
I have a lot of questions for this because especially being working in sales and working this, I'm like this is something that's could be very special.
Yes, AI agents are definitely of interest right now to a lot of people, which is really fun to get to work on and be at the forefront of that. So the idea came about basically what I had this time to take stock in what I really was passionate about when I sold my last company. And one of the things that I realized was that the arc of that company was early on, we focused very much on product, and we shifted more towards focusing a lot on sales, which is natural, right? You kind of run out of early adopters, and you realize that how good you are at sales has so much to do with the success of your company, regardless of if your product's great or not. And so I really dedicated a lot of my time and energy to being a go-to-market sales-focused CEO and built a really big sales org. And that was one of the more interesting and rewarding challenges. And I loved it. I think I'm a natural salesperson. I love to sell. I love deeply interacting with other people and being able to find mutually beneficial solutions for problems, whether that's internally in my company or actually selling to customers. And so when I got together with my co-founder Xander, he had been working on AI before I knew what AI was. Right back in 2018, he was doing like really cool stuff in ML, and so we sort of decided we wanted to start a company together. Basically, I was passionate about sales. He was passionate about AI. So we kind of knew we were probably going to end up in that area. But we really wanted to spend a lot of time thinking through exactly what within that area we wanted to build. So we actually did something I think that's pretty unique. We set a day on the calendar, 6 months from that day. We said we refuse to pick an idea for 6 months. We're going to force ourselves to stay in ideation research mode for 6 full months. And I think the reason is we'd both built pretty big and successful companies. He'd been the technical co-founder of a big company before. And we knew that you're committing 10 years. you're committing massive amounts of energy, stress, effort, as you know, sitting in a boat going backwards in spandex, right? Like doing something no one cares about that's really, really hard. And so, so we really wanted to sort of savor that moment of, you know, when you've built successful companies in the past, you kind of have access to anybody, but you don't have a company today. You're not trying to sell anything. Everyone will talk to you. And so, yeah, we did a lot of really deep research on where the world's going, how we think AI agents will factor into our daily life, our professional lives, um, how to think about the evolution of LLM models and the model companies, how application layer AI companies will and won't be successful, and how sales will operate in the future. And we had a couple big takeaways from that. The first is that we just don't believe that human sales reps are ever going away. I think there are a lot of companies in our space that are out pitching, you know, automate sales. We really don't believe that. And not even on like a next 2-year horizon, on a next 20-year horizon. We think that it's going to actually be one of the last areas to ever be automated. We think humans will play an outsized role in sales more so than other spaces, which is weird to say, right? When you're at the precipice of building a company that's going to build AI agents for sales. But we think the really big opportunity is to build agents to do all the things that humans shouldn't be doing. The challenge in sales is not that people don't want to buy for people. They actually do. Every single person we talk to that's a B2B buyer wants to build a relationship, right? They're not just buying a product or a tool. They're buying trust that, you know, they're going to spend 2 years implementing and investing in the solution, and there's someone to call to help them be successful, right? So they can go to their boss, they can be successful in their role for their company. But the problem is that we as salespeople spend so much of our time doing things that are not that highest and best use of our time. And we've so that was our sort of one big takeaway. And the second was there's this massive time mismatch. Buyers choose to focus on buying in these tiny little moments of time. There's all these little dots in a buying cycle, right? Where they happen to spend 2 minutes on a website here. They maybe respond to a nurture sales and marketing email here. And there's these tiny little moments. And we've built up the process of how we sell to align on seller capacities, right? So we sell on our own capacity as sellers, but that mismatches with our buyer's interest. And so one of the biggest differences we think that AI will create is that companies will be able to have 1,000 times as many early initial conversations with their prospects. And all of them will happen in the moment, in real time, when that buyer is most interested. So much of sales is like a buyer pops up on our radar, right? They're a little blip on the radar doing something. And then we follow up, chase down, try to align when we can have a conversation. And instead, we can turn that little blip into a real-time conversation. It's not going to replace the human call. It's actually going to further the human call. It's going to get that call scheduled faster. It's going to remove a lot of that follow-up. It's going to learn what that buyer actually cares about. Because if they can have a real-time conversation, they can give you so much signal about what matters to them, what their buying process is going to look like, that when the sales rep does get on the call, they're now prepared to actually align with that customer and more likely to close. So that's a very long answer to your question, but I'm really, really excited about where Spara is going, but also just about AI agents for sales.
Yeah, well, no, that was a very long and thorough answer, but I love it, and these are all things that I live and I work in and that I'm doing. So I have some questions to dive a little even further deeper in this. So when you talk about, and maybe this is even like product. So if there's anything that's proprietary that you don't want to say, like just say no comment, or I don't know. But so when somebody goes on your website, right, and they go in and let's say, they're clicking on a certain page and they're interested in here and you have that data and they click on something, does your platform like have an API with other research data or other companies that say, hey, this person is from this industry, this is what they're looking at, and then it fills in via API? Is that kind of how it works?
Yes. So we have all of that. You sort of hit on 2 points, which is de-anonymization, right? Who is it? And then lead enrichment. What do I know about them? So we do both of those things. But the secret sauce actually happens before, well, not before. So that happens in real time. But the secret sauce is that we let the company actually have AI agents that are there in the place where that human is trying to interact. So common example. So we have agents that exist across voice AI, chat AI, and email AI. So highlighting chat, because you mentioned going to a website. So the bottom right chat bot, you've seen a
Mhm.
thousand of them.
I
They're like,
have.
hey, are you interested in sales, customer support? Like, put in your email address. It's useless, right? It has no value to you as a buyer. Um, we've built an agentic product that can sit there with no gate, no barrier, none of that sort of static if then, doesn't feel like a form, where you can go in and just start asking questions about the company. And so what we're trying to do is open up the world where that prospective buyer who's in a discovery mode, they're not ready to click that request demo button and fill out the form, but realistically, they probably just want to know one or two things that are really important to their buying decision. And so we want them to be able to start a conversation in real time, literally ask those questions, get really great dynamic real time responses. We can show media assets, marketing videos, product screenshots, PDFs, whatever it is, to support answering those questions. And then we can ask them questions, right? What type of problem are you trying to solve? How many employees do you have at your company, right? Like whatever the right pre qualifying questions are, and then be able to route them in real time to the right place. So I'll give an example. Someone comes in and fills out a web form the old school way, and they're from a big company, but they still get routed to an SDR who does a pre-screening call with them and asks them 10 questions. It turns out, right, like it's a subsidiary of a massive conglomerate, and they have 10,000 employees, and they probably shouldn't be on that call. Instead, on Spara, if they're having a conversation with Spara in real time, they could just be answering some of these questions, and then we could schedule them directly on the right enterprise AE's calendar. We can even look up in that company's CRM, oh, this person's already assigned to Sally. Sally's been outbounding this company for 2.5 years. Let's actually schedule them directly with Sally. Now we've reduced the sales cycle, right? We've gotten that person to the right place as fast as possible, increased the conversion rate to doing that, and Sally's going to get to see what were they asking about. Maybe one person's asking all about security and compliance posture, because that's super important to their buying decision. Someone else is going to be asking all about, product over here. Someone else will be asking about a product over here. This, you're in sales. Every company does 100 things and every buyer buys it for two. The hard part is figuring out which two for each buyer.
Yeah.
Turns out when you give your customer the ability to ask questions, they ask about what they care about, and they give you tons of signal into what those two are. And they'll do that right up front in real time. There's nowhere for them to do that, nowhere there for them to start a conversation when they happen to be interested. So that's a good example of AI chat. And then same thing with voice and with email. You get a sales and marketing email, you reply to it, you ask a product question, and then 8 hours later you get a response. Like, that's totally insane. You happen to respond to that one email, a high value buyer happened to respond to that one email at 11 p.m. We have an agent who will auto reply back. They can email 10 times back and forth from 11 to 11:15 p.m. Rep wakes up the next morning and says, oh my God, look how much I've learned. I know all the things this person cared about, what they were asking about. And guess what? They've been pre-qualified. Now they're on my calendar for the next day. And I was asleep.
Okay, I love this. So, in some ways, you're replacing. And let me just make sure I get this correct, because when I saw what you were doing and what you were building, I was looking forward to this conversation so we could dive deep in it. I now I wish I kind of did more and played with it so I could ask more questions, but I think I have plenty. So, is this like an SDK that people can purchase and put onto their website, and then is that kind of how it works? So you're like replacing their chatbot function and their search bar function and a lot of things.
Yeah. It's not an SDK. We actually will have the UIs for the product, so it's like a JavaScript snippet to install.
Okay.
But so we'll have the UIs. We have 5 different chat UIs. So you can have like the bottom right chat bot. You can have a cool ChatGPT-esque bar that floats in the middle of the screen, right? Like you've got a whole bunch. You can embed a search bar somewhere. We got a bunch of different UIs. Think about Spara as a go-to-market specific conversational AI agent building platform. So company says, we think AI is going to be really powerful in how we sell. Maybe we've got one or two things we want to solve today, but we don't even know what we're going to need AI to do 3 years from now in our go-to-market. So they buy Spara, they invest in our platform. Here's what we do. We train a model on all the data about their company, right? So we get a ton of information about that company. We train an AI sales brain. Think of it as like, this is the rep learning everything about what they're going to be selling. The second thing we do is then we say, okay, great. You need workflow orchestration. What do you want the AI to achieve? What's unique about your go-to-market motion, right? One company has X, Y, and Z pre-qualification questions. Another company has different ones. Some companies define enterprise as 10,000 employees and up. Some companies define enterprise as 100 million in revenue and up. Some companies define it totally differently, right? So all those things can be now configured and customized. Do you want chat, email, voice agents? Where do you want them to operate? So there's this workflow orchestration, but you can deploy 5 agents off of one AI sales plan. And then the last piece is being able to do that across every modality. So Sally, your buyer, is going to want to chat with you, call your company, send emails with your company. It's crazy to have all 3 of those experiences be completely different in disparate systems,
Mm.
right? You're going to just have this disjointed feeling. And by having them all off of one platform, we know all the data about Sally from each interaction, and we can use it to be more, make each subsequent interaction be more valuable. And so
Oh,
that's basically the long and the short of it is companies often come to us with like, hey, we need a better chatbot on our website, or hey, we get thousands of phone calls a month and are like, press 1 for sales, press 2. That's a horrible experience. We want a better,
yeah.
we want to use AI for voice. We say, great, we can go solve that 1, 2, or 3 problems. And then they start using Spara and they say, wait, I want to launch an agent over here. This is super cool. And they don't have to retrain everything. They don't have to, invest in some new tool and learn it, figure out how to do it. They can just go and deploy a new agent. So we're really building for this future where, I don't think companies are going to want to have 5 different AI go-to-market tools that all are using different knowledge bases, all have different configurations, different platforms someone has to use. We think the future is that they're going to use one. They're going to get Spara. It's going to learn everything about their company, and it's going to be able to go solve the problems they have today, but also the problems they don't even know they have yet.
What's the sweet spot that you're looking for clients as you're ramping this up? Like, where do you see this making the biggest impact right away? Whether that's industry, company size, vertical. Like, where are you? Like, hey, this is where we can make the biggest impact right away.
Yeah, it's basically anyone selling a high volume of products online that are complex. So a high volume of complex products online. So like we don't do e-commerce. If you want to buy a new pair of socks, you probably don't need to talk to an AI agent to do that. But
Hopefully not, but you never know. There's a lot of people out
yeah,
there.
I mean, maybe you want to in the future, who knows? But today I still want to just click a button and have the sock show up. Um, so a lot of our customers are B2B software companies, fintech companies, right? Not all B2B. We have some more B2C, but that's going to be more like lending, right? So something scary, complex. I need to talk to somebody. So those are the types of products we like. And we want to have some sort of online motion, right? If you're a law firm, we're probably not the best fit. You probably
Mhm.
don't have leads coming in the traditional, SaaS sense. So anyone who sort of has that, B2B sales motion can sell things online, but probably isn't going to be a straight PLG, right? So Calendly, it might not be the best fit for Calendly's consumer business. You just go click a button, Calendly, but they have a B2B business that most people don't know about, right? So like that would be a good target prospect for us. They're not a customer. We integrate with Calendly. But that's we'd go after Calendly from the B2B side. And the problem we'd be helping them solve is how do we triage between the two? How do we make sure our sales reps are only talking to the right big B2B customers and not me and my wife getting a family calendar to keep track of, our kids' schedule.
Yeah, makes sense. So as far as the other, you mentioned the integration with Calendly. Are there any other integrations that you're excited about, like different CRM systems, different um other products? And again, I mean, I don't want to, I don't, you don't have to talk about ones
Yeah.
you're not excited about, because I don't want you to, try to pigeonhole yourself and be like, hey, why'd you just talk bad about us? But are there any that you are excited, like, oh, this has the promise to work with X software and work like this?
Yeah. We integrate with all the people you'd expect: Salesforce, HubSpot, Marketo, right? And then we have calendar integrations, lead routing integrations. Um, we also have an open API. So a lot of our big companies, they don't want native integrations. They want to do everything through an API and a webhook, and we'll send full payloads. We take maybe the more modern approach of our customers own their own data and should have complete control over that. So we'll send whatever data they want, wherever they want, make that really flexible.
Okay.
Hmm.
So before we leave, there's a couple of questions I have. Number one is what are you most excited about this next step? Because you're on the journey, you're going up the mountain, the mountains. Like there's several things, but what are you most excited about in the next 3, 6, 12 months?
Yeah, I'd say at the highest level, we have Fortune 1000 customers, and we're less than 2 years old. It's
Yeah.
an amazing time in the world. I remember just, my last company not too long ago, 5 years ago, I remember trying to sell into big companies and they wanted 3 years of financial history, right? To prove that you've been around and your company's stable. Now it's kind of like, hey, if you're more than 2 years old, you're probably not really LLM native. You're probably not actually going to be solving the problems that I want solved. And so there's this amazing shift in the world where we're seeing really big enterprise down to earlier stage startups being more innovative than they've ever been. Looking for tools that can solve really big problems, not like, oh, I need a new, we'll pick on calendars because we started there. We need a new calendar solution. No, they're trying to solve problems like we have 1,000 sales reps and we have 100 solutions engineers. The vast majority of sales calls don't have a solutions engineer on them. How do we get the knowledge of a solutions engineer on every sales call? We built an agent for that, right? So now every sales rep can have a solutions engineer expert that knows every single thing, every thousands and thousands of specific things about their product that they can call on a call and say, hey, Spara, tell me about our Salesforce integration, right? And ask some really niche question that they never would have known the answer to, and it'll answer it perfectly every time. That reduces sales cycles. That we never want a rep to have to say, "Oh, I don't know. Let me get back to you on that." Right. So that's just a little example of that's a huge fundamental problem that we've been able to build a solution for really fast. And so what I'm most excited about is continuing to collaborate with our customers to understand what are the big needs they have in their business and actually having a flexible enough platform to be able to go solve again the things that they know they need today, but feel confident that the new thing that they want to solve 6 months from now, we can just deploy an agent to go solve that. That's what I'm really excited about. And then second thing is just the pace of new models. We're
Mm.
totally model agnostic. So we use all different types of models from all different types of companies. Voice can be different than email, which is chat, all that. So it's really fun to be in a position where we can bring the latest and greatest models across every part of our product to our customers. And so it's really just, it's so fast how these models are improving. It's really fun to see.
Well, that's an important point, and actually one of the things that I was thinking of, and I wanted to ask you as the last question, or one of the last questions, is like how do you deal with the rapid pace of change and when things are but it sounds like your fundamentals and being model agnostic is a strength of yours, that it doesn't matter how fast they change, you can implement them because the fundamentals are so strong in what the actual mission and purpose and what you're doing, that those things don't really matter.
Yeah, that's one of the things that Xander and I spent a lot of time thinking about during the sort of pre starting the company phase was how do you build in a world where every 2 months someone's going to come out with something totally new? And that's the approach that we ultimately decided on, and we believe in even more strongly today, which is our purpose is to be able to solve core business problems for our customers. Right? We have customers who are saying, "Hey, I need to convert 25% more of the people who pick up the phone, call my company, or show up on my website. That's mission critical, existential. I need to do that in the next 2 years. I have no idea how I'm going to do that. I'm pretty sure AI can help, right? And so they're not coming to us and say, I want to use this model, not that model, right? That's our job. And so our job is to say, okay, great. These models out of the box don't go solve those huge business problems, right? There's a ton of infrastructure that is required We use models for a ton of different things. So just to generate one response in any of our agents, there's multiple models running, doing different tasks, right? So um, that's our, I think one of our greatest strengths is basically saying, okay, our job is to take the best technology and let's build our system from the beginning to be totally model agnostic, where we can swap models instantly. So I mean, within days of a model, if not the day a new model is released, we're testing it, and we're going to bring that to market as soon as we know that it's safe. We run tons of evaluations and put it through a really rigorous process before we start using it. But I think that that's a really important positioning for the company, and this is a good example of why it's really hard for companies who are, not from the LLM native era, that are kind of like slapping AI onto their current products. These are the types of things that are really hard for them to do, and the types of things that we just architected the system from the beginning to be able to do.
Yeah. Very impressive. From everything, the way you're thinking of it, the way you have thought of it, and your experience getting to this point, it's really impressive. And I've learned a lot, and you gave me a lot to think about. So, man, congrats on your success. And I know you're not finished, but it's very, very impressive. So,
Thanks, Dustin. I
kudos,
really appreciate it. It was
kudos.
great chatting with you. Love being
Yeah,
on today.
yeah. You know what? So I'll share a lot of the links and everything in the show description. But are there any parting thoughts that you want to give the audience? Things that you learned, or who you are, or just anything you want to say?
Well, say if you're interested in how go-to-market AI agents can help your company grow revenue, check out spara.co. If you're thinking about starting a company, it's really, really hard, and it's the most rewarding journey I've ever been on. So I wish you the best.
All right, sage words. David Walker, thank you again.
Thanks so much, Dustin. Take care.